From Grangeville to Lapway, we've got your District 2 breakdown right here on the Palouse Prepcast with Garrison Hardie.
That's right. It's another edition of the Palouse Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, breaking down everything going on in District 2 athletics. It's brought to you by the Idaho Division of Public Health. I'm Brandon Baney, joined as always by Garrison Hardie. Garrison, you're coming to us from a new location tonight.
I am. I'm coming from my apartment, actually, because I work for a TV show and my full-time job. So all of our studios are full today. So I decided, you know what, I better just go home and, let's kick it here.
Yeah, usually you're coming to us from that really nice television studio for your job. But I like the home setup too. I like a little more casual, Garrison, tonight.
Yeah, it's quaint. I've got my food and drinks off to the side here. No, not really. It's like home, as they say. Yeah,
literally. So there we go. Okay, so again, if you're watching this on YouTube, the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, or our Facebook page, you'll see what we're talking about. You'll see the background behind Garrison. You'll see the white wall behind me. People tell me I got to start putting stuff up on the wall to decorate, and I just don't. I don't have the time or the inclination to do that. So plain white it remains.
I mean, you see back there. I mean, we're in the same boat here. What a boring background we got going on right now.
Yeah, you can tell we're guys. That's for sure. I don't have that interior decorator skill set. You can also listen to the audio version of this podcast at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. All right, Garrison, last week we had a couple of championship events going on, and we were kind of looking towards state volleyball because, well, Lewiston was hosting some of the state tournaments, but also because we had a lot of teams up north that we thought had potential to maybe come home with a state title. And of course, the 1A D1 level, we talked about how Troy was the heavy favorite coming in, and really left no doubt as Troy defeated defending 1A D1 champion Grace in the title match, 25-12, 25-15, 25-12. So pretty dominant performance.
Yeah, and if I saw correctly, they won their last 38 sets. It's just unprecedented. What a great finish for Troy, and the whole team just really did their job. Simply put, everybody in every single spot in every given situation, they did their job, and that's why they were so dominant, and that's why they cleaned house, literally. So what a great way to wrap up the season for Troy. What a great thing for all the players, the coaches, all that hard work throughout the season paying off in the end. Huge props to Troy in that program.
So in 2020, Troy met up with Grace in the championship, and Grace won the title. Troy had to settle for second place. So it was also nice for them to face the same opponent that beat them last year and to get revenge, knocking out Grace. In the championship match, Jolie Eklund was a perfect 15 for 15 in service. Morgan Blazard, we talk about, I feel like it's not really a Palouse Prepcast if we don't name drop Morgan Blazard, the Eastern Washington commit. She had 17 kills in the championship and also served out the final 6 points for Troy in the victory. And, it wasn't just Troy bringing home a championship, but we talked about how strong the White Pine League was with Potlatch and Genesee, and they also brought home state trophies. Genesee defeated Potlatch in the 3rd and 4th place match, and then Genesee fell just short in the 2nd and 3rd place match against Grace. But to have 3 of the top 4 teams be from the White Pine League, I think just reaffirms what we knew, that it's really good up there.
It is. Yeah. No, we have great talent up here in District 2, and it just showcased. I mean, with Potlatch, they kind of came out of nowhere. And when Jason and I went to Potlatch to cover a football game there, we were up in the press box and they were talking about that. They just got a good core group of girls who came together, bonded well as a team, and went out and executed when it came time for game time. And then for Genesee, you have somebody like Lucy Ranasset, who really, I mean, she's tall, but she knows how to use her height, and she's a gifted athlete. So for her to kind of lead the way for the Bulldogs, along with some of the other talent that they have on that roster, just a lot of talent throughout District 2, and they really showcased that in this tournament.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see because a lot of these girls play basketball as well. And I can't wait to watch the White Pine League and basketball, watch these teams slug it out on a night-by-night basis. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. Boys and girls. There are a lot of good teams up here, Prairie in basketball, Lapway in basketball. Just very talented programs on the girls side. And then the boys side with Lapway winning the state title back to back, if I remember correctly, or they're pushing for that this year at least. So Lapway, just another solid program, but a lot of solid teams up here in District 2 for basketball.
Yeah, and the Kendrick girls basketball team got all the way to the championship last year, despite having 0 seniors on the roster, so I look for them to be strong too. But that's basketball season. We still have fall sports we got to talk about here.
Right? Yeah. Get ahead of ourselves, folks.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I don't want to be too far out over my skis. Let's talk about state cross country real quick. The cross country championships were held at Eagle Island Park. Beautiful course over in the Treasure Valley this past week. And in terms of what's going on in District 2, congratulations to the Logos girls. They won the 1A team title. It was very tight. They won it by 2 points over the defending champions from Raft River. Logos finished with 39 points. Raft River finished with 41. That's about as tight as it can be in cross country, but congrats.
Yeah, Logos has always had a history and a tradition with running. So I guess I'm not really that surprised when it comes to seeing them put up another banner. I'm there at the gym frequently, and they got a lot of cross country history on that wall. So again, big congratulations to Logos.
Yeah, and what propelled them to the win were top 12 finishes by Sarah Casebolt. She took 5th place overall individually. Clara Anderson was right behind her in 6th. And then Alyssa Bloom finished 11th. So Logos got 3 in the top 12, and that's basically what won them the title over Raft River. So, again, the excellence in cross-country at Logos continues. Let's shift to the football landscape and less positive news, Garrison. Let's talk about the game that you were at on Friday night, that 5A playoff opener. And again, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel or Facebook page, you'll see we've got the brackets up on the screen. If you're listening to this podcast, you can follow along still by just going to the homepage, IdahoSports.com, and looking at the brackets, and you can follow along that way. All right, so Lewiston hosting Capital in the opening round of the playoffs. Capital wins 44-13. I have one question for you. What happened?
It was the battle of the trenches. You and I talked about that leading into the game, and Capital came in with a clear and concise game plan there to make that really emphasize controlling the box. And Lewiston just was not able to respond. I will note that Cruz Hepburn, he was a little banged up early on in the first quarter, so that certainly hampered things on his part. He still played the rest of the game and made an impact on the defensive end and broke off a run here and there on offense, but he was hampered with that. And then on top of that, the offensive line from Lewiston struggled with these blitz packages from the Eagles. The Eagles were shooting linebackers off the edge. They were disguising their blitzes, dropping guys back into coverage that they didn't expect. And as a result, the offensive linemen from Lewiston maybe struggled with some of the assignments and whatnot. And that resulted in a lot of sacks on Jace McArcher, which I think sped up his clock, so to speak, offensively. So the routes were mistimed. The wheels just really fell off for Lewiston on offense. Lewiston's defense, they did fine at first. They came out and were stout and made Capital work for it. But as time went on, when you're on the field that much, the wheels are going to start to come off on the defensive side too. And that's really what happened. It was just kind of a chain reaction. And, Lewiston they weren't able to pick themselves back up like they normally would. The offense it didn't respond. And that was kind of the end result. But big props to Capital. Man, they executed that game plan flawlessly. The offense was crisp with their quarterback, Clark, back highly touted, leading the way. Their running game, just that Lewiston couldn't stop it. So all in all, Eagles looked great.
Yeah, Capital finished with 9 sacks in the game, including 5 from Cody Walk. And we kind of talked about, I told you to keep an eye on, if you were going to watch one guy from Capital, it was going to be Cody Walk, the tight end, defensive end. He also ran the ball a lot in this game, it looked like.
He did. Yeah, he punched it in early twice immediately, and they just ran him in a wildcat setup to where he just said, I'm getting the ball, try and stop me. and Lewiston couldn't. And they would throw, everybody would run at him, and he's just tough to bring down at over 230 pounds. So it's easy to see why he's getting looks at the collegiate level. And on top of that, he could catch the ball. So he could do it all. And, there was also a couple of other running backs who got involved as well. I want to say Caleb Olson is the other running back who got in there. So it was just kind of a stable of running backs that the Eagles had. And then when you got a quarterback like Clark slinging the ball around very accurately to your talented receivers, it added up for a tough night.
Yeah, Max Clark was the starting quarterback for Capital last year and got hurt right before the playoffs started, and that kind of derailed Capital in what they wanted to do last year. So the big question now for Lewiston is, where do you go from here? They obviously had a great season, despite the disappointment of a first-round loss. This can be a building block, right? You have to experience the playoffs before you can go win the whole thing, typically, right?
100%. Yeah. And Lewis, like you said, 7-2 season, the offense was humming all season long, really until the last couple of weeks when they ran into some really tough programs. But by and large, there are so many positives that Lewiston can take forward. Coach Pancari and his staff can take forward. And also Lewiston's got some very solid JV players ready to come up and rise to the ranks and kind of reload a little bit. Obviously, they lose the likes of Cruz Hepburn, who's off to the University of Washington on a baseball scholarship, but and among other players too. There were a handful of seniors that was their last game, which is always tough. But Lewiston, they've got a solid football program through the ranks, and they'll be able to replenish. And this is some momentum that I think Coach Pancari and his staff will be able to take forward into next season, into their off-season workouts. And they'll be able to build on this for sure. So look for Lewiston to still be a threat in the Inland Empire 5A.
Yeah, from 3-6 last year to 7-2 this year. I'm not sure there was a team in the entire state that had a more drastic turnaround than Lewiston did in 2021. So it's exciting to see the pieces in place and see the program continue to develop. So it was an exciting year for Lewiston overall.
If I can interject really quickly,
sure.
We talk about the facilities once again at Lewiston, and I really think as people continue to move to the state of Idaho and Lewiston continues to grow, I think that's only going to bolster their program. I don't know that we've seen any transfers into Lewiston athletics as of yet, but keep an eye on that as we continue on with that brand new high school facility for Lewiston.
That's right. It's going to look magnificent once it's finished. So, yeah, it's an exciting time to be a Bengal. That's for sure. A Lewiston Bengal. I will not an Idaho State Bengal. It's a bad time to be an ISU Bengal where I'm at. Yeah, they play BYU this weekend. I don't anticipate that going well. So,
thoughts and prayers, as they say.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's take a quick break here on the Palouse Prepcast. We'll hear from our sponsors from the Idaho Division of Public Health. We'll come back and tell you the teams that are still competing in the quarterfinal round in the 2A and the 1A ranks from District 2. We'll be back in just a moment. You're watching/listening to the Palouse Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
It's time to start planning for back to school. That's why I got my kids vaccinated for COVID-19. Kids 12 and older can get vaccinated. The vaccines have been researched and tested. They're safe and they work. And I hope everyone will choose to get vaccinated too.
So welcome back to the Palouse Prepcast, IdahoSports.com. Brandon Baney with Garrison Hardie. As we move on to the football teams that are still competing, let's start in the 2A ranks, where Grangeville actually had a regular season game last week that was running simultaneous to the opening round of the playoffs. They were playing St. Mary's. The winner would win the Central Idaho League, District 1 and 2 up north, and advance to the playoffs. They were able to play a regular season game because as a district champ, they would automatically get a bye. So it was the winner of this game was going to win the league, get to the playoffs. It was a tight game. Grangeville didn't score the game-winning touchdown until there was a minute remaining. Jared Lindsley scored on a short touchdown run, and Grangeville advanced 21-14 back in the playoffs once again.
Yeah, and this is a program that we've talked about as just being it's their tradition. They have the winning mentality, they have that grit and toughness. And boy, was their schedule tough this year. Emphasis on tough. They may have lost a lot of games. Their record may not look pretty, but this is a program that's been there, done that. I'm not surprised at all to see them advance to the into the playoffs.
So their reward for winning the district, well, the number 8 seed and a matchup with top seeded, two-time defending state champ, owners of a 33-game winning streak, West Side. This is a rematch from the quarterfinal round a year ago, and for the second year in a row, Grangeville is going to have to hit the road for a very, very long bus ride all the way down to Dayton, which is down by Preston in the southeast corner of the state. Tough sledding.
Well, you know what? For Grangeville, they've got nothing to lose. I mean, they're going into this game, like you said, a 33-game win streak on the other side. That's a lot of pressure for Westside, especially with the championship a few games away. Whether the players like it or not, they're going to be thinking about that as they go into it. The coaches can preach about, hey, just one game at a time. They can preach that all they want. But as the wins continue to pile up and the streak continues to go and go, that's going to be in the back of the players' mind with Westside. So for Grangeville, just come out like a rabid bulldog, just go guns a-blazing and see what happens. They've worked hard all season. They capped it off with a win in their district. Now's the time to show up and give it your all. And at the end of the day, you can look yourself in the mirror afterwards and say, we were right there. We made it to the playoffs, gave it our all, and let the results fall as they may.
Yeah, Grangeville's kind of playing with house money at this point, right? Not much is expected. They're going in against the number 1 team, and they can be loose. And we'll see how it goes. Last year, so I was on the call for the Grangeville Westside game last year in the quarterfinals, and I was talking to a lot of the fans and the parents that made the trip down from Grangeville. It's like a 2-day trip, basically. They're like, yeah, we came all the way to Pocatello Friday night, went and enjoyed Lava Hot Springs, which is a nice touristy attraction in Southeast Idaho, enjoyed the hot springs, then got up Saturday morning and traveled the remaining hour to Dayton. So it is a long trip. That's the one thing that isn't in Grangeville's favor here. But I think the Bulldogs can come out and play loose and see what happens, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, all the pressure technically is on Westside to come out and back up this 33-game win streak. Grangeville, just go out and have fun with it. And it sounds like they have the experience of being there last year, so that's kind of in their favor. They know what to expect. And you know what? This is the coaching staff with this program has a lot of wins under their belt. So they have the knowledge to back it up too.
Absolutely. So that game will be Saturday at 1 p.m. and I will be on the call for that game on IdahoSports.com. Two years in a row, Grangeville and Westside. So
well, I'm excited. Folks. Tune in with Brandon. He knows what he's talking about, so tune in.
That's right. I'm pretty excited actually to broadcast the game. So let's move on to the 1A D1 ranks, where holy smokes, we talked about the White Pine League being good for volleyball. How about this? Of the quarterfinal field, 8 teams, 4 of the 8 come from the White Pine League. Every team that could advance did, except for Clearwater Valley, because, well, they played Lapway. That's 2 White Pine League teams playing each other. So let's just run through the highlights, because none of the games were particularly close, and then we can kind of break down the matchups as we see fit. So first of all, Lapway defeated Clearwater Valley 58-6. The Year Out brothers balled out. Titus Year Out, 3 touchdowns to his younger brother Elias Year Out. Elias then scored twice on the ground. Titus scored on the ground as well. So between the two of them, that is 6 touchdowns combined behind the Year Out brothers as Lapway rolls. Potlatch also rolled over Grace 46-8. Tyler Howard had 172 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing. Also hauled in a 35-yard touchdown pass from Tyson Tucker as the 4th place team from the White Pine League easily dispatched the 2nd place team from District 5 and 6 over in the East. And then Genesee defeated Murtaugh 62-36. Cy Wareham was a beast, 9 catches, 202 yards, 2 touchdowns on offense. And then on defense, 11 tackles and a 65-yard interception return for a touchdown. So nothing new there. That was actually kind of a close game until the second half when Genesee finally ran away with it. But what was the most impressive opening round performance to you, Garrison?
Oh my gosh. For me, I've got to look at the dominance of Lapway in that game against Clearwater Valley, because folks, remind you that's a solid Clearwater Valley team. And to hold them to 6 points when the Clearwater Valley has talented players like Anthony Fabi at quarterback, and then Dylan Pickering running the ball, a powerful running back, and then a couple other weapons at wide receiver too. That's a good offense right there that I saw firsthand as they dispatched Logos and put up 40+ points in the second half. So that's a team that can score, and to hold them to 6 points, that's an impressive performance from Lapway. You mentioned Lapway's scoring and athletic ability. They just have studs all over the field. You got the Year Out brothers, as you mentioned, and just, yeah, they're fun to watch. I got to see them a couple of times this year. Speaking of which, against Potlatch, talk about an impressive performance there. 200+ yards on the ground from Howard. He runs with an attitude, and it shows. And then Titus Tucker, I'm assuming I said that right. Tyson Tucker. The TT, you know, he's an impressive athlete in his own right, in that he can both run and throw. And sounds like Potlatch had a pretty decent day with it. So all in all, a very impressive start from the White Pine. And it's unfortunate that one of them has to go down this week because Prairie and Lapway run into each other.
Yes, and we'll talk about the matchups in just a minute. I want to mention Genesee. That's a team you've been high on all year, Garrison. This Genesee team is kind of reminding me of the run they went on at state baseball last year, where I was broadcasting at the 1A state baseball tournament. Genesee kind of came in a little unheralded. They kind of finished in the middle of the pack in the White Pine League, but they got hot at the right time, and it was all the same guys. The Wareham brothers, Jack Johnson, all these guys that are playing football now. And it kind of looks like a similar thing where Genesee is kind of starting to play their best ball when it counts. I mean, they're a tough out right now.
They really are. Yeah. And, I saw them at their worst, unfortunately, when Prairie came into town. And I think there was a little bit of intimidation there potentially. But the coaching staff at Genesee, they obviously have them back on their feet, dusted off, saying, no, we are much more talented than what we showed there. And like you said, they've got athletes on this team with Cy Wareham and Jack Johnson. Johnson's a beast. If he gets out into the open field, it's a guaranteed touchdown. And then with Wareham, I mean, over 200 yards receiving. Not a bad day. So this Genesee team, it's a dark horse or a dark bulldog, if you will. Keep an eye out. I'm curious to see what they've got in store here in this next round.
Yeah, they're doing it all with a first-year head coach and Justin Podrabski as well. So that's very impressive. So let's take a look at the quarterfinal matchups. Let's just start with, you mentioned it, Prairie and Lapway. Prairie is the 4 seed. Lapway is the 5 seed. In the regular season, Prairie kind of ran past Lapway. Do you think the Wildcats can hang, or do you like Prairie here?
I would say Prairie has the advantage, but I will say Lapway can definitely hang in that, I think it was a 3-score advantage for Prairie when all was said and done, but maybe another touchdown more there. So if Lapway can figure out a way to stop the ground game somehow of Hasselstrom from Prairie, I think they absolutely can hang with it. Lapway definitely has the athletes offensively with the Year Out brothers, as well as Cross Taylor at wide receiver. He's an excellent option in that offense. I believe Mason Brown at running back. He's another talented weapon for this team, and the coaching staff is intelligent. Some of the plays they were running against Potlatch when Jason and I were on the call, they were just downright tricky. So they have a lot of wrinkles to their offense that I think they'll probably have been working hard on for another matchup against Prairie, and now they know they've got it. That being said, Prairie's defense, it can be downright dominant when it needs to be. That pass rush was brutal against Genesee. I see that being a problem for Lapway and forcing Titus to have to leave the pocket, which he's certainly adept at doing. But I think the containment from Prairie will be a lot better. They'll know their assignments. I give Prairie the edge, but keep an eye on Lapway. I think they can make a very good game of it.
The low point total for Prairie this year is 48 points. They have scored 48 or more in every single game this year. They beat Lapway 58-26 when they met in the regular season. So very impressive, very daunting. And I will tell you, talking to fans and people from Prairie, they're not very happy because if you look at this bracket again, they went 8-0 in the regular season. They went undefeated, and they only got the number 4 seed overall because of the arbitrary Max Preps rankings. I'll tell you, they're pretty fired up about that, and they've got a chip on their shoulder because of it. I wouldn't want to play Prairie right now. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and that's a scary place to be if you're their opponent this week. So I'm curious to see how Prairie comes out in this game. I can guess that they're going to come out downhill just because that's how they play on every given week. So to have this added chip on their shoulder, and the fact that Oakley is still alive. And I expect Oakley to have a shot at going to the state title this year again. I know Prairie's looking for revenge, so tune in, folks. That's this Friday at 6. You're gonna want to keep an eye on that.
Yep, that's gonna be Friday night, 6 o'clock in Cottonwood at Prairie High. I think they were maybe trying to get that game put into the Kibbe Dome. And Prairie was like, no, thanks. We want to play outside. So I think that's how that went down. Don't quote me on that. Speaking of Oakley, you mentioned Oakley, the defending 1A D1 champs. They're the 2 seed. They will play Genesee at number 7. Now, I just got done talking about how Genesee is on a roll and they're playing their best football at the right time of year. But man, this is a tough matchup for the Bulldogs.
100%. We saw it last year when their state title run, and they dispatched Prairie, as I mentioned, en route to that title. This is an Oakley team that is incredibly balanced, good offense, good defense. The fact that they were able to win the game against Prairie on a defensive stand speaks volumes, especially at the goal line where Prairie is just so proficient. So Genesee, they've got a tall task in front of them, and they know that. Justin Prajabski knows that. They're going to go into this game, I'm sure, having practiced and kind of ironed out a lot of maybe some of their deficiencies on offense. It sounds like they've got the passing game figured out with over 200 yards to Cy Wareham. And then, of course, Jack Johnson, making him the workhorse, never a bad call. But again, he's going to need some help because Oakley will key in on that, and they're going to try to lock up. If they can get it to where they can say, hey, as long as Wareham or Johnson aren't beating us, we can live with that. So Genesee is going to have to come up with some other wrinkles in order to keep the game afoot. But still, Genesee, a dark horse. I like them. Oh, we'll see how they do against that kind of competition.
Yeah, I think maybe the ride ends here for Genesee, but I think it can be competitive. But man, Oakley is just a whole nother animal. Finally, we have Potlatch. They're the number 8 seed. As difficult as Genesee's matchup is, Potlatch might be in for an even rougher ride as they play number 1 seed Raft River. I think this is also a very tough matchup for a Potlatch team that's really had a nice season overall.
100%. The one thing I would say that's going for Potlatch is they can always lean back on their running game, especially with the likes of Tyler Howard and then Tyson Tucker. Him being a dual threat quarterback makes that attack all the more dangerous. So having a ground game to lean on as a foundation, at least, even though they're going up against an incredibly tough opponent in Raft River, the number 1 overall seed in Holt Arena. That's a cool venue right there, by the way. So if they can lean on that ground game and get Howard going, maybe they can keep that competitive. And if you're still in the game towards the end of the game, all bets are off. Who knows at that point? So if they can control the tempo like they want to with the ground game and really milk the clock, make it so Raft River doesn't get as much possession as they want, who knows? I like this Potlatch team. I love how hard they work. But Raft River, I mean, they're the number 1 seed for a reason, right?
Yes, they are my favorite to win the 1A D1 title this year. So, but I think if you talk to Potlatch and say before the season starts, hey, you're going to be playing in Holt Arena on a Saturday in November. I mean, they're like, we'll take it. I mean, because coming in, they were picked, I think, 6th in the preseason coaches poll. Maybe it was 5th, but here they are, one of the final 8 teams standing. So it's been a great season for Potlatch as well. And again, that game Saturday, 1 o'clock in Holt Arena in Pocatello. That's a game we'll have for you on IdahoSports.com. If you want to see the whole schedule of games, we weren't able to do every quarterfinal matchup because there's like 24 of them going on, and we just can't be in that. We don't have enough equipment. We only have X amount of sets of broadcast gear, but we got like 85% of the games covered. So if you want to see if your favorite team is going to be on our schedule, just go to the game streams tab on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. You'll see the whole broadcast schedule for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this week. Let's wrap up with the 1A D2 bracket. Garrison, let's start with Timberline. We talked about the Spartans representing Weipe getting into the playoffs. Well, your reward was a trip to Cary in the first round. Cary wins 54-6. But for Timberline, second year in a row, they've been in the playoffs. Coach Pat Christopherson is doing a nice job of bringing this program along after they didn't even have a program a couple of years ago. And this is another building block, I think, for the Spartans.
Absolutely. And Jason and I were looking up and down their roster as they took on Logos at the beginning of the season. By the way, they didn't have two of their better players for that game against Logos, and they still put up a couple of impressive scores towards the end of that game and early on. This is a team still with a lot of youth, a lot of sophomores on this team. So they still made the playoffs. The schedule towards the back side of the schedule is where it gets heavier, and they just need to focus up on the conference and come out with some wins. And they did that. So again, like you said, another building block of the season, still a good amount of youth on this team as far as looking forward to next year. I fully expect them to make another challenge for the playoffs once again next year. Just hopefully they'll be on the hammer end of the anvil.
Yes. Okay, let's take a look at the matchup that is happening. Kendrick got the first round bye. They will take on Horseshoe Bend. This is a battle of district champions in the quarterfinal round. This will be Friday night. Neutral site, Lewiston High School. Okay, I think I remember when I was talking about Prairie earlier and how they were asked if they wanted to play in the Kibbe Dome. I think it was, did you want to play at Lewiston High as part of a doubleheader with Kendrick? And they said, no, thanks. We want Lapwai to have to come to our place in Cottonwood. I think that's how that went. So anyways, Kendrick going to host Horseshoe Bend at Lewiston High. How do you think this matchup goes, Garrison?
Oh, I really like Kendrick, Brandon. Kendrick is a power of a program in the 1A D2 up here in District 2, and they always have been. The one time I covered them a year or so ago was when they played Deary, and this is when Deary was an experienced football team. They were 4-1 going into that game. Kendrick was 5-0, and Kendrick's athletes, it was just another level, and they annihilated Deary. And Kendrick's always that way. They've got a handful of guys that can just go out and execute in whatever position they're in, and barring injuries, which typically seem to kind of unravel some things here or there for them on any given year, they just keep rolling right along. So for me, I like Kendrick, and maybe I'm a little biased as the District 2 guy, but I look for the Tigers to come out on this one.
Well, I will tell you, I also like Kendrick, and this is just an unbiased observer. On the record, I've said that Kendrick, I think, will win that game, mostly because Horseshoe Bend has to travel all the way up there. When you look at Kendrick, they're young. I mean, they're like Ty Kep, their quarterback. He's only a sophomore. It's impressive. Yeah.
And that's exactly it. Just this program has it's like a machine. The next man up mentality, that may sound like a cliche, but not with Kendrick. That they're living proof of that. So whoever you are, just be ready, practice like you're going to get into the game, and here they are. And so a young team like this, being this highly rated in the playoffs and being favored at this point, that's an exciting. Obviously, they hope to go all the way and win it this year. But that's an exciting building block for next year as they continue to add experience to this team. So, gosh, look out for Kendrick even next year. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. They got some business to take care of here.
That's right. One game at a time. And is that the game that you're going to be at, Garrison?
It is. Jason Hansen and I will be on top of the booth on the call there in Lewiston.
Awesome. That's going to be a great matchup between Horseshoe Bend and Kendrick. I always try to give you one guy to keep an eye out for from the opposing team, since it's a team you're not familiar with. I will say for Horseshoe Bend, you want to keep an eye on Colton Meyer. Obviously is a very talented dual threat quarterback. But they've got some really good linemen as well. I think watch the line play of Horseshoe Bend. I think you'll be pretty impressed, but it's going to be a good matchup either way.
Well, hey, Jason's going to love to hear that you brought up the linemen. That's always what he's looking to do. So we'll keep an eye on that Horseshoe offensive line and see if they can help Horseshoe stave off this powerful attack from Kendrick.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun matchup. That is Friday night, 7 o'clock at Lewis High School. Video coverage of that on IdahoSports.com. All right, Garrison, next week we are going to be talking Final Four for at least, I feel at least a couple of teams from District 2. I don't want to jinx anybody, but I feel good that we're going to be talking. I mean, we're guaranteed at least one team, right? Because Lapwai and Prairie are playing each other. So
that's exactly it. Yeah. And in which case we have a very fun matchup between the winner of that game against Raft River. Man, that's going to be fun to talk about.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. So thanks for stopping by as always, Garrison. It's nice to be able to break down everything going on in District 2 as we get towards the finish line of the fall sports season. The Palouse Prepcast is brought to you by the Idaho Division of Public Health. Enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. For Garrison, Hardie, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you next time on the Palouse Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.